Hello everybody! I am way too lazy to edit a video, so I'm just gonna try to go through this quickly. And hopefully not make any mistakes, because I do not want to do video editing. I am too lazy for that. Here's a song by Monkey Rascal called Buggin'. It sounds cool. I have a limiter on it. It's just a limiter so we don't get clipping, even though I don't think that'll be necessary. But anyway, Slew Distortion is a thing. That is a thing, and I made it. And LMMS doesn't have any good distortion plugins. They're all garbage except the Wave Shaper, which, well, I mean, it's garbage relative to other plugins, but it's actually usable. Unlike like I don't know, distortion. What? What even is that? You know, so like I made a distortion plugin because wow, it managed to break this other plugin. Is the limiter broken too? No, good. Okay. I assume you got the point. Yeah. So I made a distortion plugin that doesn't suck. Also, it has slew rate limiting. Like 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, really long time ago, I was trying to invent a low pass filter because I didn't know filters worked back then. And I thought, hey, so a low pass filter limits the amplitude of high frequencies. So maybe if I limit the, and high frequency means it's moving quickly, right? The way the waveform is moving fast at that point. So maybe I can invent a low pass filter by limiting the rate at which the waveform can move. And I mean, I was partially right because it does reduce the amplitude of higher frequencies generally. But as you can hear, there's a distortion tone to it as well. And it sounds super cool. As it turns out, the correct way to make a low-pass filter, or at least a basic one, would be, for example, averaging adjacent samples. So it's integration. But anyway, I'm trying to rush through this. I don't want to do any video editing. But yeah, slew rate limiting sounds super cool. One of my favorite things to do is to put an equalizer before it, and it'll make this really cool screamy sound. Yeah. Very fun stuff. So those are both kind of packed into this plugin. Also, cool thing about this plugin is that so you're processing stereo audio, so that's 2 channels, and it's multi-band, so there are 2 here. 2 times 2 is 4. That means 4 channels. I have this entire plugin pretty much is written in pure SSE2 instructions, which means the computer is processing all 4 of those channels simultaneously in a single thread. So it is being able to do 4 times the calculations that it normally would be able to. So this thing is going to use practically 0 CPU. It's essentially free. You can throw it on anything as many times as you want. It costs nothing. And it's going to be probably tens of times faster, possibly even hundreds of times faster as your average distortion VST. Ridiculously optimized plugin. And also it features oversampling. And here I can show it right now. 32 times oversampling is like running 32 instances of this essentially. And that's a surprisingly tiny amount of CPU usage for 32 of these plugins. So yeah, like, you know, it's crazy cheap, as I said. And it has all these different distortion modes. Every single one of those are optimized in the same way. They're pure SSE2. So do what you want. Yeah. So hard clipping is hard clipping. You all know what hard clipping is. 10H hyperbolic tangent. This is a perfectly smooth, infinitely differentiable waveform thingy. It's going to be your general purpose saturation, soft clipping, so on. Since it's so smooth, you can push it very, very far before it starts getting into those harsh upper frequencies. So this is one of the cleanest distortion shapes that you'll be getting, if that makes sense. And like I said, this is multi-band, so you can click this, and then this is the high band and this is the low band, so you can distort them in different ways. So if I want to only distort the low frequencies, for example. Yes, that's kind of cool. And then the high frequencies separately. That might hurt your ears a bit, I'm sorry. But but just as an example, there's also fast soft clip 1 and 2. Those are just shape variants, which use even less CPU than this, but this is still very cheap because it's pure SSC2. So I generally just go ahead and use this, but these are other options if they sound better in the current context. Sinusoidal is one of my favorites for sure. As you can see, it's a sine wave. So this graph right here is an input-output graph. The x-axis is the input and the y-axis is the output. It's just sending the audio waveform through this function, and that's how the distortion is achieved. And as you can see, unlike these other modes, which are cropped off at the top here, sinusoidal wraps back around. So that means with these other modes, once the waveform gets pushed way up to this area, all of that waveform information is cut out. It's gone, essentially. But with this, since it wraps around, it's not gone. It's just kind of, it's eventually flipped over. So it's still there. You don't lose any of that. So you just get distortion. And so there isn't really like a limit to how far you can push it. The more you push it, the crazier it gets, which you'll be able to hear. Once again, sorry for your ears. This plugin won't start sounding cool until I start combining the various features. If you wanna hear what this plugin can really do, then might want to like skip to the end or something. But for now, I'd like to explain all the features first. But anyway, this one's super useful for multiband. I like. Yeah, so if we use sinusoidal on just the bass, it has such a cool tone to it. I really like it. And of course, the split control chooses where the frequency bands are split apart with multiband mode. So yeah, sinusoidal, one of my favorites for sure. There's also foldback, which is like that, but it's a triangle wave instead. So it has a harsh corner here. But aside from that corner, everything is perfectly straight and undistorted. So this one can sound pretty cool as well. Actually, let me show that on the bass. I think that'll give you a better idea of what's happening so that all the high frequencies don't get in the way or anything. Yeah, so sinusoidal sounds kind of cleaner overall because it's smoother, but this sounds pretty cool as well. Yeah. And then here we have full rectify, which just takes the absolute value of the audio. So everything on the bottom half of the waveform is flipped to the top. This one's pretty cool because it's asymmetric, unlike these other ones, which are symmetric across y equals x, as you can see. This one is asymmetric, which means distortion adds harmonics to the audio, which have frequencies that are integer multiples of whatever audio was sent into it, ignoring aliasing. These symmetrical ones, which are symmetrical across a diagonal line here, only add odd integer harmonics. So that'd be similar to a square wave, which only has odd harmonics. As soon as it becomes asymmetrical like this, it starts adding even harmonics as well, which sounds very cool, especially full wave rectification like this. It kind of almost sounds like the audio is pitched an octave up, but it's also super distorted. I guess I'll just let you hear it. Yeah, it sounds super interesting. I'll show you with a sine wave as well. Yeah, it kind of sounds like it's an octave up, yeah? So yeah, that's a pretty cool one. There's also half wave rectification, which is the same thing, except instead of flipping the bottom to the top, it just gets rid of it entirely. I think it's pretty cool because it kind of has it sounds kind of choppy, especially when there are a lot of low frequencies, because that means there will be super long sections of the waveform in which it's in the bottom half. And those will get chopped out entirely. So it has a cool timbre to it. And then there's smooth rectify, which is a formula I invented in response to full wave rectify having the sharp corner at the bottom. Remember, sinusoidal, super smooth, fold back has that sharp corner, so it sounds harsher. I noticed this has a sharp corner, so I thought, hey, I should put together a formula that makes that smooth. So this is an option that can make it a bit cleaner. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Bitcrush is a special mode in which so this drive control controls the input gain for all of these modes except for Bitcrush. For Bitcrush, it just changes the amount of bit crushing, as you can see. And it does what it says it does. Quick disclaimer, there's a difference between bit crushing and sampler rate reduction. This does actual bit crushing of the waveform itself. It doesn't reduce the sampler rate. So I'll show that here. This is regular bit crushing. Yeah, and then the sampler rate reduction, which a lot of people refer to as bit crushing, sounds like this. Which sounds really cool, but that's not what this does. This, oop, I almost deleted the wrong one. This is doing the bit crushing. It's a distortion plugin. Sampler rate reduction isn't pure distortion; it's something else entirely. But yeah, bit crushing. That hurt. But anyway, so all these different shapes. However, these are not the only shapes because I made it so you can shape them further, and all of the changes you make are shown in this graph. So here is warp and crush, which is very cool. The way warp works is it makes it so that everything below the amplitude set by this is just a straight line. So it isn't impacted by this distortion at all. So if I have it at 0.5, then everything beneath -6 dBFS, so an amplitude of 0.5, is unimpacted by the distortion. And as you can see, the actual distortion shape is kind of pushed up there. So this is super cool because you can make it so that below a certain volume, the audio isn't distorted at all, and it only impacts any audio that goes above a certain amplitude. The song has a lot of high frequencies in it. I should probably be demoing this with multiband or something. Let's try this. Yeah, as you can tell, this plugin is going to be really, really good on basses. It's very nice for that. And then there's also the crush knob here, which is very simple. It takes wherever the warp point is, so like right here-ish, and it bends that inward. And it does have a sharp corner, as you can see. So it's a very aggressive knob. These were partially based on Camel Crusher, which is a very popular VST. Because I noticed it's so Camel Crusher has two distortion modes. There's I think it's tube and mech, if I remember right. Tube looked fairly similar to sinusoidal, except with warp like up here-ish. And I think I only measured up to like this point, so it probably isn't a sine wave past this. I don't really know though. But it looked something like this approximate shape. And then mech had a similar shape, except I think it's like a lower warp and it bent it inward like this, so it had a sharp corner. So I thought, hey, how can I get that sort of distortion into here? Because it sounds really good. And I came up with these two knobs, which is able to pretty much exactly replicate what Camel Crusher had, which is very nice. Say, yeah, you can use that on any of these modes. Works with all of them. With it gets a bit funky with some of them, but it does work. I need to drink water. Water. I love water. And that's not all. We have this bias control here. Remember earlier what I said about symmetrical versus asymmetrical distortion? This bias control immediately makes things asymmetrical, which means there will suddenly be even harmonics in your distortion when normally with symmetrical shapes, it would only add odd harmonics. So if you want some even harmonics to be added in, you can just bias it even just a tiny bit and it'll make a huge difference. I'll actually show that with a sine wave so you can see what I'm talking about with harmonics and all that. That's fun. Yeah. Spectrum analyzer. So here's a sine wave. There's a better sine wave. Let's get some more overlap here. There we go. And once we start distorting it, oops, be gone. As you can see, only odd harmonics. So that's at around 53-ish. Let's bring it down for easy math. So that's around 50 hertz. And then, as you can see, there's nothing at 100 hertz here. Well, there's a little bit of something, but that's just noise from it's error stuff. Shush. Nothing here. Ignore the tiny little whatever. I actually don't know if that's from my plugin or if it's from something else. It could be a lot of things. Effectively nothing here. You get the point. And then the next harmonic you see is at 150. So 3 times this. So it's at 1 times, 3 times, 5 times, so on. However, the moment I bias this even just a little bit, aha! See, now you have stuff at 50, 100, and so on. I need this to keep playing while I can click things. Yeah, it's super cool. So you can use that to influence. I probably spent way too much time talking about that. I'm sorry, but you can use that to heavily influence what frequencies are actually added into your audio, which is especially useful to know when creating basses and such. There's a massive difference in timbre between sub basses that have only odd harmonics and only even harmonics, and the amount of each of those impacts a lot of things as well. And it's a very good thing to be aware of. Oh, and I should show that here. It's definitely subtler here. Let me get a better example. Yeah, I can hear it a bit better there. The reason it's more subtle is because I think the bass in this song already has a ton of even harmonics, so it's adding harmonic content where there is already content. But anyway, yeah, you get the point. It's very useful. Obviously, there's a mix knob. The cool thing about these mix knobs is that they are they're friendly with the multi-band stuff. So for it to be multi-band, the audio needs to be sent through some crossover filters to split it into these multiple bands. And filters cause phase shifting with the audio, which will result in phase cancellation if you mix the wet signal with the dry signal. However, this mix is placed between those crossover filters. So it's only impacting the distortion part and not the crossover filter part, which I guess is obvious given they're in separate bands as well. But these are 100% safe to use, no matter what settings you have here. So yeah, and then there's the dynamics section, which is super cool. So what this does is it uses an envelope follower to measure the volume of the input over time. And then the higher this knob is, the closer it brings the output audio to that original volume. So a very common problem with distortion plugins is that as soon as you start distorting it a ton, its dynamic range is absolutely gone. It's squashed though. This is a very dynamic song with lots of silences in it, so it still has some range to it. But oh wait, I had the dynamics knob turned up. I was wondering why it didn't sound squashed. Here we go. This will sound like it. Yeah, absolutely squashed. But then if we turn this up, it follows the volume. Yeah, so even though this is being crushed by 24 decibels of drive, we still have all of those dynamics, which is so cool, and it works with multiband as well. So we can push both of these. The sound of that is actually pretty good. Something you'll notice a lot with distortion plugins, this is a problem almost all distortion plugins run into that aren't multiband. The low frequencies can really dominate the high frequencies. Distortion depends a lot on the amplitude of the input audio, and a lot of times the lower frequencies just swamp things out entirely. But if you separate that lower band out of the higher band, then that issue goes away entirely. So you can push things really hard and the low frequencies won't completely swamp things out anymore. Yeah. So yeah, you can do whatever, and the dynamics are always going to, yeah. Very fun. And you have these attack and release knobs, so you can control exactly how the envelope follower is working. That's funny. That sounds awful. Yeah, so a lower attack will make the transients a lot sharper, but it'll cause much more time-based distortion, similar to low attack with the compressor. I don't really know what that distortion would be called, because it's not a strict nonlinearity. It depends on stuff and things and words and, anyway. Dynamic Slooh. This is super cool. This might be the first plugin that has ever done this. I'm not certain. I definitely have never seen this anywhere else, but it is slew rate limiting, but with an envelope follower attached to it. And it has this super smart exponential shape thingy to it so that it sounds as good as it can. If we crank this all the way up, you can hear that the slew rate depends on the input volume. And we can make it the inverse if we turn this all the way down and then make the base amount of slew rate limiting very low. It's a lot of fun, yeah. And then there's also oversampling. So as I explained earlier, distortion adds harmonics to the audio. It is impossible for audio to store frequencies that are higher than half of the sample rate. So if your sample rate is 44,100 hertz, then the Nyquist frequency is 22,050 hertz, which means you cannot have any frequencies that are above 22,050 hertz. And because of how the math works out, any frequencies that go above that limit are reflected back downward, and that's known as aliasing. It does this linearly based on hertz, so it's inharmonic and it generally sounds extremely bad and awful, and it also adds auditory masking to the audio, and it's just not fun at all. And this is a huge issue for distortion plugins because they definitely have a tendency to have a ton of aliasing. Now, with oversampling, you can increase the sample rate of the audio just for this plugin. So it'll increase the sample rate, send it through this plugin, and then decrease the sample rate back to whatever matches your digital audio workstation. So you can get rid of aliasing by enabling oversampling. And even just 2 times oversampling oftentimes makes a massive difference. I can show an example of that aliasing. I'll just have to be careful because I might accidentally make a sound that really hurts your ears. So I'm going to turn this way down. So here we have a sine wave. It's distorted though. There's our sine wave-ish. And if we turn the frequency super high, this is why I'm worried about the volume. Let's make that a bit lower. I really don't want to hurt your ears. That still kind of hurts. Let's make it like 3. Okay. Unfortunately, I think the frequency needs to be a bit higher. The distortion needs to be higher. Oh. Maybe. Aha. You can hear some. Here, the comparison will make it obvious. There's more than just one frequency there. Well, I mean, obviously, because we're distorting it, but like, there's some garbage there. As soon as we turn this on, yeah, you hear that? Yeah. Maybe this would be better. It's very subtle, and I don't know why. I feel like there's a. It's probably because I have the audio. I have the volume so low, but I don't know. I don't want to keep playing super high pitched sounds. Oh, there we go. That's a perfect example. Yeah, instantly makes it so much cleaner. Oh gosh. Yeah, that actually sounds like the note you're playing. Well, this... Oh, I should just play it up here. Perfectly clean. Yeah, so that's what oversampling's for. It does make a big difference with the cleanliness of distortion in general, for sure. Yeah, it might be a bit difficult to hear if you haven't been working with audio for a long time, but it's definitely audible that without oversampling, these super high frequencies are like really crunchy, and this kind of cleans it up a lot. So oversampling is always a very nice thing to have with distortion. And so yeah, so that's pretty much it. But where things really get cool is when you start combining all these features, especially with multiband and all that, and you can get some really cool sounds out of it. And I really like having an equalizer before as well. An EQ before distortion can make some super cool sounds. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Especially with bass tones. Like you can even take something as basic as a sine wave and we could take that signal and then put another slew distortion on top. Whoa, hold on. Oops, I did not mean to click that. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to deal with me doing this for the next 5 hours, I guess. Oh, that's interesting. Quick reminder that this is a sine wave. What's that clicking coming from? Hold on. There we go. I think that fixed it. This is a triangle wave now. Saw wave. I forgot I have this here. You know this will sound really cool with? My dispersion plugin. Oh yeah. Funny. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I honestly kind of forgot I'm recording a video. Oh no. I still don't want to edit this. Slew Distortion is a plugin and stuff. Outro things. Oh, by the way, DC offset remover is cool. It'll because oh, so that's because of LMMS effects shutting off. If they already see it, there we go. DC offset remover is useful when you're using asymmetrical distortion. Because, oh no. Oh, I just noticed that DC offset has probably been messing up my voice throughout this video. hope it wasn't too bad. But 0 hertz is an even harmonic. 0 is an even number. So asymmetric distortion will have DC offset, so that's what this is useful for. It'll remove that 0 hertz sound. And also there's a manual here, which I honestly forgot I even wrote until just now. Oh, and the GUI is made by This Moon. The GUI artwork was drawn by them, and it's very cool. It looks very nice, as you can see with your eyeballs. So what else? I don't know. This video is already too long, so I should probably did you know kiwanos taste good? Like the fruit? Yeah, okay, goodbye.